Today's ingredient, new ginger or young ginger. I'm gonna make ginger pickles today, as you've seen in sushi restaurants. This is shoga, or in this case shin shoga, which means new ginger. It's young, you got the pink tips, and the skin is very thin. You could take a brush and brush it with a coarse brush and brush it, and the skin would like fall apart. And it's actually pretty edible, like in this state already. You just need to clean them. The skin is pretty thin, and they're very floral, fresh, a little bit sweeter, not as spicy, and because of their whatever like enzymes are inside, not enzymes, but like whatever pigments and like molecules are inside, like it becomes pink when you pickle them. So today we're gonna pickle them. It's in season right now, so let's do it. So today we have a bowl of water, to which we are going to add a piece of konbu. We're going to add salt. In this case, this is about 300 grams of water, because I have about 300 grams of ginger, and then everything else is being calculated in proportion to that. So I have about 10 grams of salt. This is how do you call it? Natural salt. It's not iodized, it's not processed in any way. Then I have about 1/6 of the weight of the ginger and sugar. This is also kind of unprocessed sugar. Followed by my today's vinegar. This is a red vinegar blended with some white vinegar, some white rice vinegar. You can use 100% rice vinegar, white vinegar. You want to use something that's a little bit more on the mellow side though, so maybe red vinegar. Maybe white vinegar is too strong. You can add a little bit of balsamic vinegar to this, not like a super aged one that becomes very sweet, but like a slightly high grade one to compensate for if you don't have access to red vinegar. I'm just dissolving my salt and sugar. I should have done it. I should have done it before adding the konbu, but that's whatever. And like most things when you're cooking, the most important step is to taste what you're doing. So I'm going to taste this. And it's quite tasty. It's salty, it's sweet, it's a bit funky, it's pungent. And then you can adjust. If you think you want a little bit saltier because you would prefer your pickles to be on the saltier side, add a bit more salt, or maybe even add a little bit of soy sauce or something. If you think, like I went to a sushi restaurant and I thought it was really good when it was a little bit more on the sweet side, then you can add a bit more sugar or use a milder vinegar or something like that. But I like what I have right now, and it's gonna just get more umami as the konbu does its job. Something else you'll need is to have some water on the boil. Yeah, we're gonna boil the ginger because it's pretty strong, even young ginger. And when you go to like a sushi restaurant or you eat pickled ginger for whatever purpose you want to eat pickled ginger, you're never like, this is so spicy, like it's always kind of mild and pleasantly gingery. So we're gonna boil our ginger, as you saw with the boiling water, while I let the sugar and the salt dissolve more and the konbu do its thing a little bit more. Now we're gonna peel our ginger. How do you peel ginger? It's quite simple, in fact. You take a spoon and you just kind of scrape it off like this. And in this case it's young ginger, so it peels very easily, but this works equally as well with like old ginger, like normal ginger. You'll just have to apply a little bit more pressure. And you can use your ginger scraps like this to make like a a little ginger tea or infuse it into something. Oh, it's quite juicy. One of the differences to a young ginger and like older ginger is that, older ginger has this, it's like dry and fibrous. This is not yet super dry or fibrous. It's very like juicy and sweet and not sweet but like soft. It's got a softness to it. I wouldn't say it's soft compared to like other vegetables, but compared to the ginger that we eat very commonly, this is quite on the mild side. This is this is a little bit thick, but this can do the job quite well. As you can see, the ginger has been peeled, and I rinse it a little bit, and my water is boiling now, so I'm going to just add them to the boiling water one by one. Now that they've been added to the boiling water, you want to let them boil for about 8 to 10 minutes, depending on how mild you want them to become. And then you want to cool them down quickly so that they don't lose their texture and keep kind of cooking from residual heat. And after we cool them down, we're going to pickle them whole in the pickling liquid. If you have vacuum sealing machines, you can vacuum seal them in the pack with the vinegar, and that's going to be even more efficient. But you can pickle them in any way that you would normally do a pickle, basically. And because I'm going to leave these whole, it'll take a while for them to pickle fully. But, they can keep for a very long time. The only other thing I want to mention is in regards to vinegar. Oh, you can see my setup over here. But I have my vinegar mix that we made earlier. And, this uses red vinegar, which is made using leftovers from the production of sake. So there's a little bit of like a caramelization and sweetness going on, which plain rice vinegar or other kinds of vinegar, except maybe like balsamic vinegar or sherry vinegar, don't have that kind of like sweetness. So if you're making it with regular rice vinegar or like a kind of harsher, less naturally sweet vinegar, I would recommend that you add a little bit more sugar to your mixture. And as I've mentioned before, you should always taste what you're making. So in this case, taste your vinegar, and if it tastes the way you want it, then it should be good. Like, of course, if it's too sweet or not, if it's like too sweet and not vinegary enough, it might lead to bacterial growth beyond a certain point. If there's so much sugar, there's a point where like the sugar basically kills every potential bacteria, so that's not a problem. But if you taste it and it's like, oh, it's too harsh, then add a little bit more sweetness. If you think it's like too sweet, then you can always add a little bit more vinegar to compensate for it. It really depends on your preferences. It depends on how spicy your ginger is, depends on how naturally sweet your ginger is, how naturally sweet your vinegar is, how strong your salt is as well. I'm using a natural salt, so it's a little bit more on the mild side. It even has some people say it even has like a kind of back of the mouth sweetness to it. But regardless, always taste what you're making, so that, well, one, it tastes like the way you want it. That way, it's your expression of how you want to make this food. It's not somebody else's. And also just taste and make sure that it's not bad. It's been 10 minutes. Alright, they've been cooled down, and you want to make sure to drain them well, because you want the you don't want to dilute your vinegar. So I'm just gonna give each one of them a little dry. Now that they've all been added to the vinegar mixture, to make sure that they're completely submerged from all sides, because it's floating right now. What you can do, which is it looks kind of gross, but is a pretty easy way to do it, is you just cover it with a paper towel like this, and because the paper towel gets soaked by the vinegar and keeps absorbing more vinegar, it makes it so that the ginger that touches the paper towel on top will get submerged in this way. If you have a jar, you can just put everything in a jar, and then what's going to happen is that because it's in the jar, and if the jar is full enough, then they can't float any more than they can already do, and then they'll be submerged in vinegar. Or you can put some cling film, which is also what I'm going to do, just so that my fridge doesn't smell like vinegar. It's going to be ready in maybe 3, 4, 5 days. It depends on how thick your ginger is, depends on a lot of how acidic your vinegar is and other factors like that. But one way to check is if you cut your vinegar down the middle. If you cut your ginger down the middle, you can see how far the vinegar has penetrated. So that's one way to know. And of course, right now these are all big chunks. What you could have done beforehand is you could have taken either like a sharp knife or taken a mandolin, and you cut it thinly into like those thin strips that you see in sushi restaurants, and then you would just blanch those, because it's so thin that, like, instead of boiling them whole for 10 minutes, you can just kind of dunk them in the boiling water, wait like a few seconds, pull it out, rinse it with cold water, and then pickle it the same way. And that would also be really delicious and would be similar to sushi restaurants. But in this case, this is all purpose. I could cut this thinly after the fact. I could cut this into chunks for other purposes. I could I could dice it and then put it in a sauce, or put it in a salad or something. So this is more all purpose. So this is why I'm doing it this way. Thank you very much for watching. Hello, I wanted to address the type of vinegar I'm using to make my pickled ginger. So basically, I talk about red vinegar and rice vinegar and this and that, and Mips is interested as well. And basically, living in Japan, I have access maybe to certain things that people don't have access to. But this is actually a situation where I believe if you live outside of Japan, you might have an edge over me in one aspect, which is the access to red vinegar from Iio Jozo, which is a vinegar producer from Kyoto. And I believe in Japan they weren't able to sell that much of their red vinegar, of their akasu. So basically they started selling a different version, which is this one here. And this is they call it the hand-rolled sushi vinegar. And it's a mixture of a little bit of salt, sugar, maybe there's no sugar, hold on. Yeah, there's vinegar, salt, and some sugar in there. And it's a mixture of white vinegar from their house that they make, red vinegar from their house that they make, salt and sugar. And basically this is like an all-purpose, it's a pre-made sushi vinegar, and for having access to red vinegar, this is like one of the easiest ways for me. So even though this is a blended, already seasoned vinegar, it still does the job very well for me. So that's what I'm using. Because it's a little bit more on the sweet side, in today's recipe I adjusted and put less sugar than I normally would, I think. and because it's a little bit saltier than I'm used to, because like pure red vinegar is not seasoned, right? So in this case, I added a little bit more salt than I would normally. Now, in terms of what I would have used or what I have access to, I have the pre-made mix containing red vinegar, which was my main ingredient today, and I'm going to take a shot of it afterwards. I have my 3 vinegars that I'm talking about today. Another vinegar that I have access to that I bought is also from Iio Jozo. This is their cloudy premium rice vinegar, and this is rice vinegar that's made to be basically equivalent to a Junmai Daiginjo sake, except in vinegar form. And it's cloudy because it still has the acetic acid bacteria in there. I'm not sure if it's a raw vinegar or not. I believe it is, but regardless if it's raw or not, the bacteria are still in there. They might just be dead. And if the bacteria are still alive, then this is a raw vinegar that you can use to do other things with. And if it's not a raw vinegar, then you still get the health benefits of the acetic acid bacteria, because you're eating their corpse basically. This is, I believe this is a very, very highly regarded vinegar in Japan. And I'm buying it not just because it's highly regarded, but also because it's from Kyoto and it's done in a way that I respect, with rice that they grow themselves, and it's organically grown, and they care a lot about their product, and there's more rice per pound. There's more rice per like gram of this vinegar than there is in most rice vinegars, which are industrially processed and are done in a kind of sped up fashion. So you can really taste the kind of depth of the vinegars here. And as you can see here, this is their red vinegar mixture. And it's pretty quite dark. And then this is their cloudy premium vinegar, which is a little bit more on the kind of orangey yellow side. Or this is a very amber, almost like a whiskey looking color. And then over here I have a white vinegar that's a little bit on the yellow side. White vinegar. I have a rice vinegar. It's a bit more on the yellow side, and this is Chidori-su, also from Kyoto. Living in Kyoto, I try to use Kyoto products. So Chidori-su, and this is a very mild, kind of sweet, naturally vinegar, and this is pretty commonly used in restaurants and things like that, because it's got a pretty mellow sourness, and it's got a pretty clean flavor profile, so it's very versatile. And I'm almost out. But this vinegar has very yellow tinge to it. And this is probably the mildest and most naturally sweet vinegar that I have out of these. And today, after I finished filming the video, I retasted my vinegar a little bit, and felt like, I could use a little bit more of an acidic punch, so I added a few droplets of this guy into it. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because, I have access to these vinegars that maybe you don't have access to, but I believe Iio Jozo does sell outside of Japan, and you can go to specialty grocery stores and buy these things, but they might be pretty expensive. So I just want to let you know that you could use any vinegar that you like. It's just that depending on the depth of flavor, the natural sweetness, and there's a lot of factors that are going to affect everything. And I'm going to do a vinegar tasting now to show that even though these two are white vinegars, white rice vinegars, and even though these two are from the same the same vinegar house, that they taste very differently. So I'm gonna go from what I assume is lightest to strongest. So I'm gonna go with a little sip of a Chidori-su. It's obviously it's kind of harsh. It's a vinegar after all. But it's very drinkable. It goes down smooth. It's pretty sour. You barely even need to dilute it and to make it actually drinkable. I find this drinkable, but I'm also a freak, and I do like to drink vinegar and very acidic things, and I've been eating acidic things my entire life. But this is a pretty mellow vinegar, all things considered, which is I believe why it's used so commonly in Kyoto cuisine. Kind of lets you showcase the ingredients of the flavor of the ingredients. Next, the premium vinegar from the premium cloudy vinegar from Iio Jozo. This one is actually more mellow in terms of acidity, but it doesn't have the same kind of almost fruity sweetness that this one has. But this one has lots and lots and lots of complexity. You taste a lot of stuff going on. So while this is maybe more mellow on the acidity side, beep beep beep. While this is maybe more mellow on the acidity side, it's not necessarily. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily sweet naturally like this one is, and just because this one is more mellow doesn't mean it tastes less. This one actually tastes more. There's more going on. It's quite complex. You might think, oh, because this vinegar tastes so much stuff, that maybe using it for cooking like this as a pickling liquid is maybe not the best idea, because I want to showcase the flavor of the ingredients, which was my reasoning today, is that I think this would not have gone well with the ginger, and the particularities of this vinegar that make it so interesting would, even though this is very flavorful, it would have gotten lost because ginger is a very overpowering flavor. Whereas in this case, this is robust enough to stand up to the vinegar. So in this case, this is like to stand up to the ginger. So basically, this is the reason I chose this as my main pickling liquid, is that it has a pretty strong flavor, but I think that flavor blends with the ginger quite well and is robust enough to not be hidden away by the ginger. Because the other vinegar, while it does have a lot of flavor, they're all kind of subtle, floral, very like aromatic. You feel it in your nose, but ginger kind of overpowers all that. So I think that even though it's a delicious vinegar, it's kind of a waste to use it with the ginger. Whereas in this case, this vinegar is robust enough to stand up to the ginger, and I'm going to drink some as well. This one is definitely the hardest to drink. In comparison to the other ones, this is very aggressively salty, and it's a little bit on the sweeter side, but it's not a sweetness that you get from like sugar. This is a sweetness that you get from aging and caramelization, and you get from, of course there's some sugar added too, I'm sure, but a lot of the sweetness comes from the process with which it is made, and one of the reasons why red vinegar tends to be expensive. And because it's a pre-mixed, added to your rice directly kind of vinegar, it's seasoned quite strongly, and the salt is very aggressive. But in this case, it also helps with the preservation. It helps with bringing out the flavor from the ginger. So this one is a lot more robust, a lot more strong. It's more acidic, it's more salty, and it's got that lingering sweetness. The same way that the Chidori-su had a lingering sweetness to it. And it's got a lot of aromas. You feel it in your nose, you feel it in the back of your throat. And I think this one was the winner for me. And tasting them all back to back to back, like, I think this one was the right choice. And I think that's something that you should do with, if you have a lot of vinegar at home, or you're planning on eventually down the future having a lot of vinegar at home. When you cook with these vinegars, it's good to have like a baseline of like, you taste all of them, even just a little spoonful, maybe not like a piece of a shot glass, but a little spoonful of vinegar, to know how they taste like, to know how they compare, to know how their aromas are, their just natural sweetness levels, their acidity. And even if you have two vinegars that have approximately the same acidity, the way it's expressed is also very differently. So sometimes it kind of sticks. It's like, it's kind of harsh, whereas sometimes like, it goes down smooth and it's mellow, even though they have the same acidity, just like a wine or things like that. And in this case, because vinegar is alcohol that's been further fermented into vinegar, it does have those kinds of character. So yeah, just a primer, not a primer, but like a kind of side note on vinegar, and why I chose what I chose, and what I'm using, in case you're like, oh, it looks so delicious, I want to use exactly what he's using. Then here you go. I'm showing you what I have. But you can make delicious pickled ginger. You can make delicious gari with any vinegar. It just depends on you adjusting according to your taste, and adjusting to what the level of sweetness you want, the level of saltiness you want, and how much on the spectrum of like ginger to the vinegar's aromats do you want to balance things on? So thank you for indulging me in tasting vinegar. And this is also just an excuse for me to drink vinegar, which I really like. Thank you very much. And I hope that this was at least a little bit informative, especially the ginger part. This part with me drinking vinegar, maybe that's, maybe that's excessive, but I wanted to, put my cards on the table, show you what I'm using, and kind of give you information that maybe if you're like me, when you watch these kinds of videos, sometimes you're like, I want to know exactly what ingredient he's using. Well, here you go.